country in a manner that is lawful, in a manner that will promote economic growth and increase agricultural production and protect food security. This is precisely what we are going to do. I say this advisedly because having gone through this province, I saw what the lack of land to our people has meant over the years. Our people continue to be hungry for land. They continue to want land where they can eke out a living, where they can create their own economies. And we are able to say, as the African National Congress, we shall return the land to the people of our country, as well as here in the Northern Cape. Now, the Northern Cape has this great river running through it, which is the Orange River, which has a confluence of the Vaal River and the Harts River, the Vaal-Harts River. Now, some of the people that we met said their forebears were dispossessed of their land, they were driven off their land, and they had water rights drawing water from the Orange River over the years, and those water rights were taken away from them and they were distributed amongst the white farmers. And these are the people who we met who now say, we want our land back, but we also want our water rights back. And we've said to them, yes, you shall get your land as well as your water rights back so that you can farm. Now, in terms of tackling all these challenges, the ANC truly remains the best hope for the people of our country to fulfill their aspirations. And they articulated very clearly to us as we met them that they see no other organization that has the capability and that has the track record that can be able to address their aspirations. And they even said, we have seen a lot that you have done to improve the lives of our people. We want you now to continue and to hurry up to fulfill the aspirations that we continue to have. They say this because they see this as a uniting movement, a movement that can unite our people. And we are able to say that since our 54th conference, the ANC is a movement that is uniting, that is renewing and healing itself, as directed by our 54th conference. We obviously always have detractors who say that the unity project amongst our ranks is failing, and I'm able to say that conference directed us to be united, and we are going to achieve unity. Whether people like it or not, the ANC shall be united. I say so because we are repositioning the African National Congress to be the leader of society and to be the servant, the trusted servant of the people of our country. Our branches will once again become the lifeblood of the communities, and the people will once again know that the ANC cadres will assist them to address their challenges and their problems. This is something that we are committed to doing, to be a servant organization to the people of South Africa. I know of no other organization which right from the onset was given the mandate to be the servant of the people and which will into eternity continue being the servant of our people so that our people can get a better life. Only the African National Congress can do so. Now, just coming back reminisce about the that led to the formation of the ANC, and it reflected the life of Sol Plaatje, right there at his graveside. It is common cause that the ANC was formed in the absence of direct political representation of black people in the then Union of South Africa, where black or African leaders wanted an agent that would bring about changes, and that is what led to the formation of the ANC. And in essence, what they sought to do was to form a people's parliament. Now, just observing Sol Plaatje's tombstone brought back to memory some of the history of our glorious movement, how this movement was formed, and sometimes the history part just evaporates and many of us are not immediately aware of some of the very colorful and important events that occurred as the ANC was going to be formed. There were extensive consultations that spanned a number of years, followed up by a number of preparatory meetings before the ANC was formed. And some of the consultations included leaders spending a lot of time with one another. And in some book I read that they even went to consult with Mahatma Gandhi at a Tolstoy farm somewhere in KZN. The roots of the ANC were made up of a number of regional organizations that had been formed prior to the ANC being established. And these regional organizations spread throughout our region, including in places like Botswana, and therefore it means that the ANC has lived up, even up till today, in ensuring that consultation in everything that we do continues. So this has been a very key attribute in the life of the ANC, because it was right at the foundation of the African National Congress. It is a project that was grounded and well-rooted amongst the minds and the people of our country as the consultation process spread. Now, one of the distinguishing features of events that preceded the formation of the ANC were the proliferation of the establishment of a number of newspapers that were established around the country by a number of black leaders. At an early stage, they did this so that they can propagate the vision of a South Africa that they envisaged at the time. Newspapers were also established to heighten the political awareness and lead to greater enlightenment. And it is interesting that the newspapers of the day were largely owned by black people, with just a few of them being financed by white liberals. And as they were discussing the formation of the ANC and the preparatory processes, one of the issues that came to mind was that a national newspaper should be launched by this new organization that they were going to form, because they realized that one of the key things was to raise the level of consciousness amongst the people of our country so that they understand the vision that was being fashioned. Leadership also played a critical role leading up to the formation of the ANC. Even at an early stage, there was a galaxy of leaders across the length and the breadth of the country who were committed to become change agents and to change the country not only for their own interests, but for the interests of the people of South Africa. And at the time, leaders who were playing a key role were so many, as you know, it would take the whole evening to mention many of them. All the provinces of our country were replete with leaders who were concerned about the state of the country country at that time. Pixlika Isakaseme had the great responsibility of leading this process. He sent out a circular in August of 1911 to African leaders, to communities and newspapers, outlining the need for unity and for the ANC to be formed. As they saw it at the time, the aim that Seth articulated was quite modest. It was modest in that it was to set up an organization that would, yes, represent the views of black people and Africans in particular, to bring about an influence of public opinion and the legislative process. Now, as you can see, the objectives at the time, having been quite modest, were far from the revolutionary metamorphosis that the ANC went through in later years, and especially in the 40s and the 50s. Now, another important aspect in forming the ANC was an appeal that was made to African leaders to cast aside personal differences. And Seme said, the demon of racialism and the aberrations of the Xhosa, the Fingo feud, the animosity that exists between the Zulus and the Tongas, between the Basotho, and every native must be buried and forgotten. And he continued and said, it is this that has led to blood being shed. And he said, we are one people. The divisions, the jealousies that we have had amongst us must come to an end. This is a great appeal to say, let us put our differences aside. And that message continues to reverberate through the ages up till today. For as we renew the African National Congress, we're continuing to repeat that whatever differences that we have must be cast aside, and we must unite the African National Congress and make it the organization that will continue to fight for the improvement of the lives of our people. So we are on point. And as efforts were being made to establish the ANC in the field of organizational politics, indications were also growing amongst Africans about unity. And this started manifesting itself, and the interesting part is that these efforts spanned right across a number of sectors, including the formation or the launching of newspapers that would educate and mold and represent African public opinion, and they also established economic and religious organizations to encourage cooperation amongst Africans, and these also filtered into the educational field. And at the time, our leaders were quite absorbed and so intricately involved with the project of unity. And it is this that we too today need to be deeply involved in. We need to be involved in forging unity and making sure that indeed the African National Congress must unite. There also at that time were a number of other efforts about uniting the religious sector as well, and in education as well. The most significant speech in the formation of the ANC was given by Pixley Sakasebe, who was addressing chiefs of royal blood and gentlemen of our race. And this is where the ANC connected quite closely with traditional leaders and brought traditional leaders within the realm of the African National Congress. And this it did because it realized that traditional leaders had a mass-based platform which the ANC needed to respond to. So even at an early stage, the ANC wanted to be a mass organization, and therefore mass appeal started even at that early stage. And for the first time, traditional leaders cooperated enthusiastically with educated activists on an interterritorial basis, with several paramount chiefs being represented directly and indirectly. And the interesting part, as this day, the 8th of January, was being celebrated, many of the chiefs, the traditional leaders around our country, sent funds for the holding of this conference. Some of them, as we know, also sent cattle and other resources. So even at that commencement, we had the mass appeal and the mass support of, yes, the subject of traditional leaders. Now, the other important aspect, which Zamani Soul highlighted yesterday when we held a dialogue at the University of Sol Plaatje, was the appeal to churches. And he reflected that, which many of us may not have been aware of, and possibly directly aware of, was that many of the leaders in the African National Congress, from the very first president, were practicing religious leaders. Many of the presidents were reverends and leaders in the church and all that. And as he related this gave me a lot of hope that maybe after this presidency, I could also become a reverend in some church. So I have quite a bit of hope. Being here in the birthplace of the first Secretary General invokes all these wonderful memories about the history of the ANC, but it is also an inspiring moment to be at a place where one of the most outstanding leaders of our movement spent the better part of his life. Now, this should fill us with the commitment and the determination that underpinned Sol Plaatje's life, so that we can continue on the road that he himself traversed. Now, as we participated in this dialogue yesterday, one other important aspect which I was not aware of was how Sol Plaatje, even at the early stage, stood up for the rights of women. I had not been aware that Charlotte Maxeke, one of the most outstanding leaders of our movement, had attended one of the prior meetings towards the formation of the ANC in Queenstown, I think in 1909, when a meeting had been held of the South African National Convention, and she was the only woman who attended. And the men who were in attendance, in a meeting that was chaired by Reverend Khobusana, the men said, "What is she doing here?" And they had to form a committee to discuss whether she should be in the meeting or not. The committee decided unanimously that no, she shouldn't be. The reason they gave was that it was not yet time for women to participate in political organizations like the one that they were participating in. And Sol Plaatje was the only one who spoke out for the rights of women. And he admonished them, and he said, of all the people who were there, Charlotte Maxeke was probably the most qualified of all the men who were there, and she had a right to be there. Now, these are the revelations that one keeps getting about the history of our glorious movement. Our former national chairperson, Comrade Balega Mbete, was also at the meeting. She gave an outline of what they are dealing with as part of the Archives Committee of the African National Congress, as they have been given as part of their work to preserve the archives of the African National Congress, but also to make sure that the history of the ANC is completed. And she assured us that that history of the ANC is continuing to be written and it will soon be completed. One hopes that anecdotes like these of Charlotte Maxeke and many other women who played a key role in the struggle of our movement, including also the history of the ANC, will also form part of this. Now, as I conclude, I made all these remarks as part of celebrating the history of this great and glorious movement, because it is these anecdotes, it is these wonderful stories that make up what the African National Congress is all about. And I hope that as we move on, we will keep on adding to the history of this great movement, for there is no other movement or organization like the African National Congress anywhere else in the whole world. And when we say happy birthday ANC, we should do so filled with a great deal of pride, knowing that all of us who are seated here are following in the footsteps of great leaders, and that we are part of this great movement that was formed by a galaxy of leaders to liberate the people of our country and to improve their lives. And in the end, we should all say thank you to all those founding fathers and mothers who established this great organization, and say that we are the heirs of this great movement. And for that reason, we should all say happy birthday, African National Congress, happy birthday. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the President there. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Dumelang, Absheni, Sanmonani, Molweni, Dimadegwane, Abode A. Kalina Kipeni, Wagalebeane. Thank you to the DP, Zizi Godwa, for taking care of business earlier on. I am so honored to be here to be your program director for the later part of tonight's proceedings.